Google introduced a Nexus program with the HTC Nexus One. The primary objective is to showcase the power of Android by using decent hardware and selling the devices at decent price points. Nexus devices always have a place in the hearts of Android purists as it has a stock Android experience and always are the first phones to receive new updates. Since the first Nexus smartphone, Google has released a Nexus smartphone every year. This year, however, Google has released two smartphones, the LG Nexus 5X and the Huawei Nexus 6P, to provide two options for the users. The 5X is the lower end handset of the two and is a direct successor to the Nexus 5, which was released in 2013. Nexus phones in the past have always had issues and compromises that the users have to make in exchange for a stock Android experience. However, things appear to be different this time around with both the Nexus devices. Let's dive into a review to see whether the Google Nexus 5X manages to break free from the usual Nexus restraints. The Nexus 5X comes 2 years after the introduction of the Nexus 5, and it's a good thing to see that Google have a smaller Nexus phone for those who really don't want to carry around the larger phone. The design up front is pretty bland if you put it up against most of the current smartphones out there, but it looks quite nice at the back. The Nexus 5X is definitely bigger than the Nexus 5, both in terms of screen size as well as physical dimensions. But with that said, the Nexus 5X actually handles better than the Nexus 5. The reason for that is probably because it doesn't feel as wide or as chubby as the Nexus 5. The 5X fits well into the palm of your hands thanks to the rounded edges at the back, and despite having flat sides, it doesn't feel too blocky. The build quality is decent but is surprisingly worse than the Nexus 5 itself. It doesn't creak or feel flimsy, but it doesn't feel as solid as the Nexus 5. The front is dominated by the display. Above the display you have the earpiece, which has an identical design to the loudspeaker below the display. You also have a front-facing camera as well as the ambient light and proximity sensors. The speaker grills have a dotted pattern which looks quite nice. The right side houses the volume rocker as well as the power button. We feel that the positions of both the keys should have been swapped, as the power button should ideally be placed where the thumb comes to rest. The position is where the volume up button currently lies. However, on the plus side, your hands do get accustomed to this layout in a day or two. The buttons have good feedback when pressed as well. The left side houses just the nano SIM tray, and at the top you find the secondary microphone. At the bottom you have the new USB Type-C port as well as the primary microphone and the 3.5mm audio jack. The back is where things get interesting, and frankly we quite like the design of the back. At the top you have the main camera, the dual tone LED flash unit and the laser autofocus. Below that you have the fingerprint sensor. The phone has quite a stealthy look all around the sides and at the front. However, at the back it looks more premium thanks to the silver accents of the LG and Nexus logo as well as the ring around the fingerprint sensor. The back panel is non-removable and neither is the battery. The Nexus 5X comes in black, white and ice blue colors. The display unit on the Nexus 5X is a 5.2-inch 1080p IPS display. It has Corning Gorilla Glass 3 for protection along with oleophobic coating. The glass is quite resistant to scratches, and with regular usage we didn't face any issues with it getting scratched. The display isn't the highest resolution unit out there, but it is no short in terms of sharpness. In fact, it seems as if there has been some optimization in terms of sharpness, as it looks sharper than most other 5.2-inch 1080p displays that we have used. Don't worry, however, as it isn't overly sharpened either. The colors are quite natural and the contrast is good too. The sunlight legibility is quite good thanks to the good contrast and less reflectivity of the glass. The brightness is good enough for most situations as well, and the minimum brightness is quite low, which allows you to use the phone in the dark without much strain to your eyes. The fingerprint sensor on the 5X is located at the back just below the camera unit. The sensor is round in shape and has a nice silver bezel that looks good. The position is perfect and is where your index fingers rest by default, so those two fingers would be ideal to register. The accuracy is quite good and the speed at which it recognizes is really fast as well. So far it's one of the fastest fingerprint sensors that we have used on any phone. The sensor only faces issues when your finger is sweaty or your finger or sensor is wet. You can either unlock the device by waking it up first by pressing the power button, then placing your finger on it, or just by placing your finger over the sensor even when the phone is asleep. The software is probably the most important aspect of any Nexus smartphone. The 5X is no different as it runs on the latest version of Google Android, which is Marshmallow. Being Marshmallow, the first thing you'd probably notice is the permissions. Starting off, the phone asks for permissions for multiple things. You can choose to deny all the permissions or give a particular permission for an app. You can even reset your network settings without having to reset the entire device itself. The device also brings about all the other changes that Marshmallow comes with. The 5X supports 4G LTE with support for Band 3 and Band 40 in India. It has a nano SIM slot, but there is no dual SIM model available. Nexus smartphones typically don't come with micro SD card slots either, and that doesn't change with the 5X nor the 6P. There are two storage models available, a 16GB as well as a 32GB model. The 32GB model comes with 24.89GB of space out of the box. The device also supports USB OTG. The typical micro USB port is replaced with a USB Type-C port, which still has not been adopted widely. However, the good thing is that it will be future-proof. LG has included a USB Type-C to Type-C cable in the box. However, there is no Type-C to Type-A cable. You can use your device to charge another device, which is where the Type-C to Type-C cable comes in handy. You can even connect and use your device as a MIDI input. The 5X supports Bluetooth 4.2 as well as dual-band Wi-Fi 802.11, A, B, G, N and AC. It is powered by the Hexacore Snapdragon 808 processor and has 2GB of RAM, out of which 1.1GB is in use when just the default apps are running in the background. The performance of the Nexus 5X is quite good thanks to the stock Android experience. Navigating through the phone is buttery smooth without any lag, and it never crashed or rebooted on us. 2GB of RAM does suffice for multitasking as well, although more RAM is almost always welcome. The primary camera on the Nexus 5X is a 12MP camera with dual-tone LED flash and laser autofocus. In terms of image quality, the phone does really well. Images are bright, well detailed and have good color. White balance too is spot on, and the laser autofocus is quite fast to lock onto a subject. However, we have seen phones with faster AF even without laser assist. Sometimes AF does hunt a bit, especially on tiny objects or subjects in the frame. The camera has a maximum aperture of f2.0, which can take images with really good bokeh when focused up close. The dynamic range is pretty good too, but sometimes the highlights are blown out of proportion. This can be solved using the HDR Plus mode. Low light shots do a good job at keeping the noise in check. As the light reduces, there is a gradual increase in the noise levels as well, but nothing alarming, and is one of the best we have seen perform in low light. The phone also has a dual-tone LED flash that's really powerful. Thanks to dual-tone, it captures skin tone much better as opposed to a single-tone flash color. The flash also doubles up as a really capable flashlight. The main thing missing here is OIS, but considering the price point, we could perhaps understand that cost saving is one of the reasons why Google omitted it. The shutter speed is fast enough in most conditions to eliminate shakes, but the lack of OIS definitely affects videos. Video shot on the Nexus 5X have a maximum resolution of 4K at 30fps. They are really detailed and have good color as well, but unfortunately there is no OIS to keep the video stable. As a result, every movement looks too sudden and jagged, which is a shame, as we can only imagine how good the videos would have looked with OIS as well. The front camera is a 5MP unit that's also capable of recording 1080p videos at 30fps. The image quality is pretty decent for a front-facing camera, as it produces bright images and takes them quite fast. The detailing isn't great, but should be good enough to share on social media. The Nexus 5X comes with a built-in 2700 mAh battery. Nexus phones of the past have had bad battery life, and while the 5X isn't great in terms of battery life, it is most definitely better, especially in terms of standby power drain. Thanks to the dose feature, the standby power drain is just 1% or 2 over several hours. So even if you charge up the device before sleeping and leave it unplugged overnight, you should still have around 95% of charge the next morning. The device scored a one charge rating of 8 hours and 22 minutes, which isn't much, but we haven't taken the standby time into consideration for the test. The LG Nexus 5X is not without faults, but is a worthy update to the aging Nexus 5. While I may not have recommended it at the initial price at which it was launched in India, since it was too close to the Nexus 6P in terms of pricing, the 5X is definitely worth your money at its new price point of around Rs 23,000 for the 16GB version. At that price point, it offers really good value for money. If you want a snappy phone with a good camera, display, fingerprint sensor and a stock Android experience, then look no further. However, do choose your storage variant wisely when making the purchase. Listed below are the pros and cons of the device. If you like this video, do hit the like button and do subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.